Bob Fraser. No, I didn't. I don't even know this guy. I've never even met this guy in my life. I don't know nothing about him. I told these detectives that they didn't care about that. They didn't care about anything. They just wanted like they just like they didn't believe me. They kept telling me that they know I did it. I know they kept telling me, I know you did. I know you did. I don't know this guy. No, I don't.
Hello, and welcome to No Stone Left Unturned. I am your host, Matt Muller. This is a true crime podcast focused on finding the truth. Good or bad, we investigate each case to the fullest extent. Each season, I will take you through a case of someone who has proclaimed their innocence. They provide the case, the court documents, and their side of the story. We find the truth. 63% of wrongful convictions involve misidentification. My mission is to create a community of true crime investigators who continue to work together to find justice. Please join our Facebook group, No Stone Unturned, for case documents and follow-up questions about the case. First, I would like to apologize for last week's episode. I've received a lot of feedback, and to make it clear, we don't have recordings of any police interviews or interrogations. I'm going to do my best to summarize the statements the best we can, but we do not have recordings. We do not have live video. We do not have even surveillance video of this crime. So we have to go based on the spoken word. And the only way is for me to speak it. As always, you can get access to any documents that we go over in a case at the Facebook group, No Stone Left Unturned Pod. I'm creating a Google Drive with all transcripts, diagrams, and they'll be available to you as of today. Today's episode, you're going to hear from two eyewitnesses, and we're going to take a look at the environment of Topeka, Kansas in the early 2000s. Let's look at what's happening in Topeka, Kansas in the early 2000s. You could say it was experiencing an influx of crime. For example, according to macrotrends.net, violent crimes, murders, burglaries were all at an all-time high. You were 4 times as likely to be a victim of a robbery in Topeka compared to any part of Kansas in 2001, and 2 times as likely compared to anywhere else in the United States. The same is true for murders. If you look at the LexisNexis Community Crime Map, the week of January 22nd, 2002, there's a slew of assaults, robberies, all around that White Lakes Mall area. In the statements you'll hear today, it's important to know the scene of the crime. We will continue to hear references to the back door and the front door of Carlos O'Kelly's and White Lakes Mall. So let me paint a verbal picture for you to make things a bit clearer. Carlos O'Kelly's is on the corner of Kansas and Croix, opposite White Lakes Mall. So you need to cross the road from the mall to the huge parking lot to get to Carlos O'Kelly's. Carlos O'Kelly's is a standalone building. It's situated on the corner, almost as tight to the road as if you were looking at a gas station or a convenience store. It has that sidewalk right near it, but it's right on that main road. When you go on Google Earth, the business has a public easement with a sidewalk, parking spaces on the left and the right, and bang, you're at the back door of the business. Behind Carlos O'Kelly's, where the back door opens up, is Kansas Avenue, a main road. On the other side of the main road is a large wooded area, which now has a park on the other side of it. If we're entering the restaurant from the back door, you walk in and make a left, you are in the kitchen. Through another door to your right will be the office, the men's room, then the women's room. Opposite those restrooms is a supply room. Then you walk around the corner either left or right, and you'll be entering the dining room. Today, I want to analyze 2 conflicting witness statements and get into motive. First, you'll hear Mike Neal's testimony, the passenger of Al Stevens' truck from the last episode. Then, we'll hear from Bob's son, a witness in his own father's attack only 1 room away. The prosecutor swears Mike in and starts with the general pleasantries, the usual good mornings, how are you, act. Mike is 48, does not live in Topeka, but has worked in Topeka all his life. Mike worked for Brewster Place for about 5.5 years at the time of the crime. He makes the distinction he did not work for Al. They worked in the same crew together. He's asked if he's eaten at Carlos O'Kelly's. He has, but does not attest to having been in the back of the restaurant or have any unusual familiarity like Al Stevens did. The prosecutor confirms he remembers and takes the same route as Al testified to, and he confirms the same route. Prosecutor, anything unusual happened when you turned onto Croix? Yes. As I recall, we turned west onto Croix and a car was pulling over to the curb and then stopped and an individual was getting out. As the car came to a stop, how close were you to Mr. Stevens? Essentially, we were just right on the other side of it. The turn into White Lakes is just right past that point where they have stopped, I believe. And we had slowed down almost to a stop ourselves, I think to allow traffic to go by to make the turn into the parking lot. In relation to Carlos O'Kelly's, where did the vehicle stop? It wasn't directly across from the building on Croix. It was somewhere in the vicinity between the parking lot and the building. The prosecutor goes on to ask about what kind of car they were in and if and where he was sitting. He confirms he's the passenger in Al's pickup truck. Prosecutor asked him to go through what he could see when the car stopped in front of him. He says, I think there was only one other person in the car. Was that the driver? Yes, that's the driver. Could you tell me anything about the driver? He was a black male. Can you tell me about the passenger? Black male, over 5 feet, recessed eyes, protruding lip. How was he dressed? Hooded, gray sweatshirt. Prosecutor then asked, where were the passenger going? He says he went walking towards the restaurant. Can't say if he was going towards the back or the front. This directly contradicts what Al Michaels testified to. And remember, Al was the driver. Mike is the passenger. How can Al testify the man walked into the back of the restaurant when Mike himself, who would have had a better view of the person considering he's not driving the car and he's seated in the passenger side, which faces Carlos O'Kelly's, can even say where the man went besides towards the restaurant? For clarification, the distance from the road to Carlos O'Kelly's is maybe 50 feet. It's an open, wide space with some grass. Something is off about this testimony. It doesn't sound right, and it doesn't make sense. How are you driving in the opposite direction of the restaurant? The driver says, oh, I saw him go right into the back of the restaurant. But the passenger in the car with the better view, they both experienced the same exact incident. Can't even tell you what part of the restaurant he went into or if he even went to the restaurant. He just knows he went in that direction. Okay, let's move on to Mike's testimony on how the police came to find he was a witness. Well, it turns out Al volunteered both of them as witnesses. Mike was hesitant to get involved. I wonder why. Maybe because he couldn't see if the driver of the car with tinted windows was African American or not, and really didn't know one way or another. Prosecutor asked about interactions with Detective Eby. Okay, let's move on to Mike's testimony on how the police came to find out he was a witness. It turns out Al volunteered both of them as witnesses. Mike was hesitant to get involved. I wonder why. Maybe because he couldn't actually see if the driver of a car is African American or not with tinted windows. Maybe because he doesn't even know where the guy went when he got out of the car. And maybe they really didn't witness much of anything at all. The prosecutor asked about interactions with David Eby. He says he showed him some photographs and took a statement. Then the prosecutor asked, do you remember what you told him about the car? No, I don't. Did you tell him it was a dark, compact four-door like Honda? I don't recall. After 2 more meetings with David Eby, Mike picks picture number 2 and writes, leaning towards, has the right look. That's why James Griffin is on trial. because they were leaning towards picking photo number 2, a photo not of him, a photo of his brother. I want to know something else strange, something that really doesn't make sense to me. These two guys are here to testify to seeing this car, but never once does the prosecutor show a picture of the alleged car that they think James drove as the getaway driver of this robbery. You know why that is? Because James drove a Mazda 626, black, very nice tinted windows. It looks nothing like a compact Honda. Nothing. Keep that in mind. The next witness to take the stand is the son. He describes much of the same as Bob, just another normal day at Carlos O'Kelly's. They have a tour coming in. He's working in the kitchen getting ready for the day. We're going to skip ahead in his testimony, though, to the time of the shooting. Prosecutor asked, when somebody else came in the back door, where were you? I was standing on the line probably 40, 45 feet away from the back door. When you saw that somebody else came in the back door, did you know for certain where your dad was? I didn't know for certain, but I had a good idea he was in the office. Now, your dad told us employees are discouraged from using the back door. Is that true? That is true. You came in the back door? Yes. Tell us what you saw when someone else came in the back door. I just saw basically just an all black figure. He was covered from head to toe in black. Did you say he? Yes, I would say he. Now, it could have been a she. I don't know. Now, this exchange is a little strange to me. The prosecutor is going to ask more about the suspected gunman, but the son doesn't seem to give him the answers he's looking for. What is it that draws your attention down the hallway to see this? Just seeing, just an all black silhouette coming in somewhere where it shouldn't have been. If it was an employee, you would probably see khakis or something besides just the color of black walk in. I don't want to confuse you. You said you saw someone in all black. Then you indicated you've seen a silhouette. A silhouette would appear to be all black. Could you tell the color of the person's clothing? Yes, the clothing was all black. But from 40 to 45 feet away, could you tell the race the person was? No. What the sex the person was? No. Did you see someone come in the door cause you any alarm at any point? Not too big of an alarm. I worried a little bit that they were not carrying anything in, so I thought it wasn't a delivery. But it really didn't click in my head at first to really be worried about anything. Let's pause for a second. How do you see someone walk in and obviously in some sort of disguise or mask, right? That's what all the eyewitnesses have said. Couldn't see his face, head to toe, in black. Into your father's restaurant, where you work, where your sister works, and not stop, not investigate who this person is. Remember, it's a high of 52 degrees that day. Someone you don't expect walks in, walks straight past you without saying a thing, dressed not for the weather, but dressed for something else. Why is that? Well, maybe because this has happened before, right? We know Carlos O'Kelly's has been robbed 3 different times. We know that this might not be that strange for the son. This might be something that happens often. Visitors to see Bob, people that need to talk to Bob. And maybe the son knows he's supposed to stay out of it. Maybe this is actually a normal occurrence. Back to the testimony. The prosecutor asked, did you see where the person went to after they came in the back door? They stepped foot into the office. Did you lose sight of the person? Yes. What is the next thing you remember? Hearing a pop. When you heard the pop, could you tell where the pop came from? Yes, to my right. There are still all 4 of you in the kitchen area? Yeah. How many pops did you hear? Just 1. What did you do? I walked in the dish area. I got there Then the kid asked me, what was that? I pretty much asked him the same thing. I don't know. I proceeded to walk down a little hallway, down a little, and then cut to the right a little bit to actually see down on the floor of the hallway. So I just started heading that way. When I got around the corner, I saw my dad's head just kind of peeking out the door. What'd you do next? From here, I went and called 911, talked to the operator, and I went back to see if my dad was all right. After that, the prosecutor asked more about his dad. What was he saying? Who was around him? Nothing really of interest comes of this. Finally, he runs in the back door to find the person who was shot, his dad. He doesn't find anyone. So what have we learned so far about this incident? From my perspective, this doesn't sound like an armed robbery. Why? Well, one, there's no money. Two, there's a chain restaurant that isn't even open yet. Of all the places to drive 3 hours to go rob, I'd probably pick a place that was actually open and deals with a lot of cash. Restaurants deal with a lot of cash. I'm not sure that this day of the week was the most busy time for that. I'm not saying every crime has to be the perfect crime or meticulously planned, but shouldn't the state have to prove something that makes some logical sense? Also, beyond a reasonable doubt, think about it. Does it really sound like a robbery to you? What was taken? Who robs a restaurant solo? To me, this sounds like something else. Whoever did this knows the back door is open, knows Bob is going to be in that office and the door is not going to be locked. And he knows that when Bob sees him, he's not going to panic and call for help. My question is why? Thank you for listening. I'm sure you have thoughts and questions about the case. Please submit all questions, thoughts, and theories to the Facebook group No Stone Left Unturned podcast. Next week, we will hear the final state witnesses, dig into James Griffin's legal defense, and maybe hear from his defense team.
Oh.